What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1595 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Redley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, returning to Toronto Mic'd to make a major announcement, it's Mike Richards.
Yeah, and a real announcement for once, not this is, every time you repost something, it always says the same thing. It's embarrassing for me because it's true. It's like Mike Richards drops in to tell a huge, major announcement. And then 2 years later, a huge announcement coming from Mike Richards is like, when is there ever going to be a good one? Well, I can tell you today.
Okay.
There is.
So you're self-aware then, okay? Because I'm aware of the fact that I always joke. Once a year, Dave Hodge will come by, and he'll tell us his 100 favorite songs of the calendar year. And once a year, Mike Richards will come by to make a major announcement. Like it's like sort of a ritual. And it hasn't been a year since you were on Toronto Mike because you made the long trek. And bless your heart, you're a sweetheart. I tell anyone who will listen, Mike Richards is a sweetheart. But you made the trek to Christie Pitts for a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game, and you co-hosted that episode with me, and you were amazing.
That was a great day. That was a great day, and with the guests that were on there were fantastic. Some
you
of them,
remind me, because they're all blurring together now, because I did 4 of those things.
Well, the guy who ended up working for Moses Neimer for all those times probably put the dance party thing together.
Oh, Joel Goldberg.
Yeah, he was really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, then the guy from
Blair Packham, was he there? I'm trying to remember from the Jitters and
yes, he was. That's correct. Yeah, he was fascinating too.
Well, there are a bunch of great guests. And would you co-host? I'm putting you on the spot here, but before we get to your major announcement, would you co-host another live recording from Christie Pitts in 2025?
Oh, of course I would.
Okay, we're gonna make sure there's gonna be another Mike Richards, so it'll be like Mike and Mike's excellent Christie Pitts adventure here. So. Some of those times you made major announcements, they were like real things. Like you had a new show somewhere and it actually happened. But sometimes you made a major announcement and it never came to fruition. So Before we get to this one, you made I think about a year ago, you made a major announcement about, and I don't know, Izzy Asper was involved. I don't know what was going on. But like what happened to that?
Okay, so that's a company called, what they call themselves, Anthem Sports and Entertainment.
Okay.
And so I was dealing with someone there that was on one of their channels that they have called the Game Plus Network. And so I was working with another company as well called Homestand Sports. Those were ex-TSN guys, Mark Silver and Mike Day. And so it all looked like it was coming together like really nicely, even though no one has ever and still has never heard of the Game Plus Network.
Right.
No one gets it.
Right.
Like, it's if the difficulty in this time because of the decimation of sports media in this country, especially sports radio, but sports media as a whole, which means when you're independent, like I've had to be out of necessity for the last 5 to almost 7 years, I would say.
Right.
That you have to find dance partners. And in this world, that's not a good place to be. I've not enjoyed this ride. It's like being the pretty girl at a dance for Marines when they haven't seen a girl in 7 years and you're not wearing as many clothes as you probably should and you've been drinking cough medicine all day. It just wasn't a very safe place for me because not everybody is ethical. In fact, this last 5 to 7 years, most of the people, and a good portion of them, are basically pirates.
So are we talking like snake oil salesmen, or are we just talking about like they're out for a quick, just to sell you, I don't know, swampland in Florida?
Well, I think what happens is they have a little bit of power because those that did have the power have left.
Yes. There's a
the
vacuum, right?
area. Yes, there is. And so those that control a little bit of where you could possibly put on a show are not overly, at least for the experience I've just had, they're just not really good at what they do.
So you said you used the terms you're looking for a dance partner.
Yes.
Okay. I've had lengthy discussions with your former colleague, your good friend, Jeff Lumby.
Yes.
So let's shout him out because he's listening in France.
Yeah. Talked to him yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Lumby's listening. He's a big Mike Richards fan, but he's also a dear friend of yours, right?
Yeah. Very close.
So can you explain to me, as a guy who, you know, this is episode 1595. So again, the announcement will come after you crack open the Great Lakes beer, which will come after
God.
you can crack it now if you want. Okay.
I'm an Irish person. Like, I need something to drink
Okay.
there. Like,
You have a Canuck Pale Ale in front of you, Mike Richards. Please. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe Hawaii. No, it's 5 a.m.
I'm just taking it.
What? Just crack it open.
Yeah.
Oh, not even on the mic, Mike. Okay, I gotta take
sorry.
that back. Okay, take a sip. So, why do you need? I'm just tell me, why do you need or want a dance partner in 2024? Why not roll your own with the technology we now have access to? That's it. And then if that's a heavy question,
No,
it's
it's
because
not.
Humble and Fred are rolling their own because I produce that show and they don't have a dance partner unless they're dancing with me. Why do you need a dance partner?
If I want to get what was taken away from me, I probably can't do it just by being a sports podcast because there are 10 billion of them. I wasn't in Toronto probably, at least to my take, long enough to probably garner the kinds of numbers where the sort of sponsors that I'd be looking for would even be remotely interested.
Gotcha.
I need the largest platform I can find. And trying to get there in the last 5 years seemed like, let's just say what it is. During the woke culture of what we went through. Sorry, folks.
Whoa.
But that's what it was.
Whoa.
That guys, I'll say guys, weren't going to be necessarily welcome to the airwaves. Guys of a certain age group, of a certain category.
Oh, you're
let's just
saying
say.
white guys
Yeah.
were
Not popular.
not getting new jobs because they had held all the jobs for so long that the pendulum had swung, and now they were going to hire people who weren't white guys.
Pendulum swung so far over that it broke off where it was nailed to the wall and went sailing way to the left. And so I just watched it sail into the clouds.
Right. So you found, though, before we get to the announcement, you found a dance partner that you want to dance with.
Correct.
Okay. Now, maybe a moment or two on what the fuck is wrong with our sports media on terrestrial airwaves. Like, I don't, there were big shows on the Fan 590 and now I think we're down to like there's Overdrive, which is still seems to have a little heat on it. But other than that, there's no show on Toronto airwaves. I'm talking about 590 and 1050. I hear any buzz about. Like, it's all just kind of vanilla. There's no characters left. Like, what are your thoughts on the current state of sports radio in this market? Toronto.
Well, it's the problem isn't just this market. It's this entire country. And for those that hold the keys to those stations,
Rogers and Bell,
both of them, and one's worse than the other, and obviously that's Bell. But there's a fine balance to making that format work, which is not understood by those who currently run it. I don't mean those who own it. I mean, those they put in place, for instance, program directors, those who are programming this. So what we have now is a bunch of people who aren't necessarily broadcasters. They're just like sports nerds. It's the problem where the podcast, where I was excited about a podcast. Well, most of the things that I hear on these given shows has nothing to do with broadcasting and everything to do with how much they know. And they know a lot. But if I want to go and hear a an avalanche of sports nerd talk. I'll just go to a local bar and hear them argue about who was the greatest guy drafted in 1997. I don't care. I've never cared about that. In fact, most people don't, unless they're like the GM of a team. I got news for these guys. You're never going to be a GM. In fact, these guys never talk to GMs. They don't talk to anybody. They turn on the microphone and they blather away about how much they know, and they know a lot. In fact, I would say they know too much. There's only so much I want to know about the fourth line guy. I don't, who? Stand someone? Nobody cares. And then they do 3 hours on it. I'm like, what about all the other sports? What are the biggest stories? Well, they will gravitate to stories, talk to themselves like they're in their friend's bedroom, and there's hours of this. I'm like, okay, if you're a podcaster, and this is sort of the advent of podcasting, it is a availability for those that are sort of driven in a niche of some kind. So let's just say it's the Leafs. So Steve Dangle. So he's the big Leaf guy. So he can go on.
Yeah, jump cuts on YouTube.
Rant and rave for hours, and people who love the Leafs love him. And I know him. He's a good guy. He's worked very hard to get.
Yeah, he's been down here.
And he's worked hard to get what he's got. Trust me, I'm not knocking what he's done. He's been very successful at something that I would have thought would be popular, except it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. He lives and dies by every pass, every whistle. And so he has found himself, but I couldn't listen to that for hours on end, but he's a podcast.
Yeah, it's a Homer podcast.
Yeah, so that's fine. But what's happened is some of that element, and a lot of that element, quite frankly, has now gone to the airwaves. Because why? The guys who talk like this, those individuals who now have the microphone, they don't pay him anything. They're not going to pay him any money. I talked to a guy last night who's the general manager of an entire company. He said, we don't pay these people anything. We don't have to.
Right.
They got nowhere to go.
Right.
He goes, but if
they do it for free.
They almost.
At least you got a beer out of this.
So what is where's the answer?
Right.
Where's the understanding of trying to get that balance back of sports knowledge, really interesting guests, and entertainment? Right now, as I sit, it just had to be me doing something independent. And as much as I've struck out, and I've been down here for 7 years or longer, coming down, here's my new announcement. Then it not happening, or it being a fraction of what I thought it would be.
Okay, so just some context there is, like, for example, you made an announcement you were returning to radio, and you did, in fact, return to a small Mississauga station.
Yes, yeah.
But you did, in your announcement, you talked about how one day Drake would drop by. Do you remember?
No,
him?
that was the podcast.
Sorry, there's so many announcements. They're bleeding together here. That was a
Yes.
different one. Okay.
Yes.
But so there was a project where you said, you're going to hang out with Doug Gilmour, and then there'll be a knock at the door. It'll be Drizzy will be at the door.
Who's Drizzy? I'm sorry.
That's Drake. Sorry.
Okay.
So he's got a few nicknames there. But that obviously, then this, whatever that was, obviously Drake never dropped by.
Now, in all fairness, I will tell you,
Yeah.
going into that world,
Yeah.
this is what I was told by that company.
Because
that
you're
I'd be
dealing
getting.
with, you know what you're dealing with? Snake oil salesman, essentially. Like they're telling you this magic cream, Mike Richards, is going to make you, give you a 6-pack. Okay, rub this cream. Now, careful on your.
Now this is taking a turn for
Would you? Yeah, that's why the cameras are here, because you can show us that 6-pack. But bottom line is, they're selling you this thing, and I think you're so vulnerable because you have such great content, and you're so good at what you do. But like you said, radio, that as you knew it when you were on, when I would go to the washroom at the Air Canada Centre, I had to stare at your handsome face.
Yes,
right?
that is true.
You were. When you were on the morning show at 10:50, they had you like literally, you can't go to the washroom at the Air Canada Centre till you look at Mike Richards. It's really interesting. But you had that. You were there, you touched the mountaintops. You have great content. You've got a good rap on you. You've got fanatical fans who want to hear Mike Richards. You'll do some Bob Cole. You'll do some, who's the soap opera guy that you do so well? I should know this.
Victor Newman.
Victor Newman, okay. Yeah. But at the same time, you'll talk about how Juan Soto just signed for $1 trillion to play with the New York Mets and how the Blue Jays weren't in it. I actually wouldn't mind that take because that's the hot news from last night. But you are so hungry for this and a dance partner that will take you to that very ball that you were at, that you're susceptible to snake oil salesman. And I think that's why you've had all these false starts. I think they sell you the world. You're like Charlie Brown, okay? They hold that football and you're like, I'm going to get to kick the football. I can't believe it. Lucy's going to let me kick the football. And you do your big run and then Lucy's like, psych, and then you hit your ass on the way down. And that happens multiple times. But this time it'll be different.
Well, it is different because it's done. This time, through, again, trying to acquire a dance partner and understanding, we talked about the pendulum.
Yeah.
Because if I get something, then that should tell everybody that the pendulum is coming back the other way. And there are other signs. There are other signs that the world that existed 4 or 5 years ago is now coming back the other way. Just look at politics.
Right.
And so when you see the Trump world, no, again,
that's your target audience.
but
MAGA.
Well, it might be. But if that Pierre Poilievre is going to be our next prime minister,
Most likely, absolutely.
now, if you go back 4 years, none of those. That's a joke. You people look how many clips you have of huge celebrities south of the border saying Trump has as much chance as, I think Tom Hanks said, as dinosaurs falling from the sky, and all those would.
Right.
And I understand why they would say it, because in trying to follow what you would say is a societal norm, then quite frankly, as one high executive put it about 4 years ago, he goes, "You're the Howard Stern of sports." So when this current time, if you come into our building, like babies will start crying, like they are afraid of what you have brought,
right?
And they don't.
There's a risk with you.
Yeah. Well, this is how they see it,
and they're risk averse. That's why it's so vanilla, as we talked about earlier. And I mean, they got rid of Bob McCowan. One day they just said, "Bob, your last day's Friday." Like, this is how it went down. And Bob's walked out of the building. Bob McCowan was sports radio in this city for decades, like primetime sports.
Well, the country really sort of owes him. I certainly do. He's the one who brought me into the Fan back in 1994, or I probably take my chances in music radio where I existed at the time.
With Lumbee.
Lumbee was one of them, sure. John Derringer was another one.
John Derringer.
It's just, that was.
Have you heard from him recently?
No, I have not heard from John. Okay. But to your point,
yeah,
most of my contemporaries,
yeah,
they're all gone.
Yeah, so Bob McCowan, but then this is actually interesting timing, this big announcement you're about to make. I'm on pins and needles over here. Okay, because it was just last week that Bob McCowan announced, he was walked out by Rogers at the Fan 590 after how many years of service there. But he's like, I'm done podcasting. So the people who wanted, and again, Bob has had some strokes and he's not, in the best condition of his life physically. But for those who wanted their hit of Bob McCowan, they can't get it anymore because Bob McCowan has shuttered his podcast. So it's interesting that there might be a void there. And it's interesting we talk about, you talk about the shift, Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump. So there is now, you're saying there is now an appetite for the old straight cis white guy. And you can now be the Howard Stern and on your own terms because you don't need terrestrial radio to broadcast.
It's correct.
Okay, so
it's the last one standing. A lot of times I would talk smack and say I have no competition. But that was me just being, okay, so now I'm the Larry Bird of sports radio.
You're like Muhammad Ali, right? You got some bravado to you.
But it was kind of fun. Let me tell you on that point.
Yeah.
When John Derringer and myself take over at the Fan after Bob, and they put Bob to the afternoons.
Of course.
There was a lot of, John had gone from Q107 to Montreal.
Right.
And then come back. And of course, with our good friend Jimmy Lang.
Right.
So Jim Lang.
Yep.
So they put all of us together and Craig Venn running the board.
Right.
This
also
is
known as Lobster
group.
Boy. Absolutely.
Lobster
That's
Boy.
the crew.
It was in the time where there was fun yet fierce smack talk amongst other morning show hosts. It was a great time to be doing morning radio in the city,
right.
But we also had a lot of respect for each other. There wasn't a lot of nasty. And our first day, John and myself get a phone call live on air from another morning show. Another morning show. That would never happen now. And quite frankly, if another morning show called another morning show, I wouldn't know who they were because no one else knows who you are.
You would have to be in the same damn company, right? Like it would be like, oh, Virgin's going to call 104.5 or whatever because they're in the same damn building.
Yes. It would be one of those.
Which morning show called you?
Humble and Fred.
Humble and Fred.
So Humble calls to wish us good luck.
Wow.
That's the kind of professionalism, the dignity, and the respect that's gone now. Like, and just because I would say because of the names and the weight of Humble and Fred, that was one of the coolest things I think that I recall amongst morning show. But again, that's when it was fierce. There was competition. There was competition for the sponsors. There was competition ultimately because of ratings and numbers. Try finding anyone. Well, if you can find the numbers, good luck.
Right. Yeah, that's difficult. You can see now they keep it under lock and key and they spin it. And the way I've noticed everyone's number one in some demo.
No,
and
some aren't. You can only spin a 0.5 so many ways before you realize you're shit.
How many listeners did you have on that Mississauga station?
Well, they weren't on the Numeris. They were on something
convenient.
Well, right? I think the most I had was like, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 a week, something like that.
You know what? I would have taken the under. So good for you, buddy. Because I would have taken the under on that one here.
But here's the other thing it did. It financially carried my family for probably 2, almost 3 years to get me to this point. It was the bridge between the weirdness of trying to start a podcast and trying to find a dance partner. And the dance partner, by the way, what we're talking about is not,
you ready? So
it's not radio. It's TV.
Not radio. Okay, so I'm now ready for this announcement because I can hardly contain my enthusiasm over here. So, Mike, you know I love you. I root for you. I root for you so damn hard. I'm like, anytime you want to come over, this is an open door. I can't wait to see you again at Christie Pitts. I can't wait to learn the details of this big announcement so I can root for you in whatever forum or whatever platform. We're going to get the details in a moment here. We missed you at TMLX 17.
Yeah, that's too bad I couldn't have made that one.
That was at Palma's Kitchen, and I know what a fanatic you are of Palma pasta.
Yeah, and so Anthony owes me.
So Anthony owns you, but you know what? We'll take care of you. Anthony Petrucci is a big Mike Richards head too, so loves you. So what I do have, and you've cracked open a Canuck Pale Ale. I'm going to send you home with some craft beer. And of course, Palma
I'm taking
pasta.
A lot of stuff. I know what you've planned, but I'm taking more than you planned.
You can rob me blind, man. You can whatever. You had me at hello. Ridley Funeral Home, who hope that you're not at their doorstep anytime soon.
No, let's hope that one doesn't. Yeah, very good. Very
you
good.
Look good.
I during those times where I was hoping that I wouldn't get stuck with a colostomy bag, which I do. So as you're listening right now, going, what's that now? Yeah, that's part of the whole life-saving thing. So you can either worry about the vanity of that or be happy that you're still a dad. And
but do you have one right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I wasn't sure because you had surgery to reroute things, right?
Well, that was the thing. It's normally you get what they call an ileostomy. So when they have like a bowel resection, so while the cancerous part was taken out,
right.
So while it heals, they redo your plumbing so it comes sort of in the outside into this pouch.
When I hug you, I don't want to hug you to squeeze you too tight. Things might leak out.
I think that's just a good rule, whether I had one or not.
So you got a bag colonoscopy? Is that what it's called? No, what's it called?
So I have a colostomy bag, but they say
tough word to say.
Do you have to say bag all the time? Can't you say pouch?
Pouch. Yeah, I think you call it a bag.
They want to say pouch, but you most of the time like you wouldn't even know that I have it.
Okay, so but you feel good.
Oh, I feel great.
And you're about to embark on a brand new chapter in your life, and that's exciting. So Ridley Funeral Home, who will see you in about 35 years, Mike Richards. Never.
You think I'm dying? They took its best shot. Good luck with that.
If you died, okay, they can't cremate you because they'll never get that fire out. Is that what I understand? Okay, so
that's correct.
Ridley Funeral Home sent you over a measuring tape, Mike, so you can measure anything you want. You've earned it. You've earned that.
Oh.
Okay, it's
a measuring device. That's interesting.
It's a measuring device. And I want to give you a wireless speaker. This is maybe a way we could hear your new content. We're going to get the details in a moment. Moneris sent that over, but you have a condition here. Okay, nothing in life is free. Those snake oil salesmen who wanted to dance with you must have told you this. But this is on the condition that you listen to season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by Al Grego. Al Grego was at TMLX 17 because he likes me more than you do at Palma's Kitchen. That was a couple of weeks ago. It was a great time, but you must come to the next TMLX
I
event.
will be able to. I can guarantee you that.
Okay. Yes. So the season 7, by the way, the final episode is with Tyler Schwartz and his wife, and they run Retro Festive in Oakville. And Tyler Schwartz was also at TMLX 17, and he gave everybody a gift. So last but not least, the big announcement's coming. I'm not going to do a drum roll or something cheesy. No. That's more of a morning zoo type thing, okay? So I will just tell you that if you have a drawer full of old electronics, old devices, old cables, don't throw that in the garbage, Mike. so the chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and then drop it off to be properly recycled. It's good for everybody, good for humans, good for mankind. You know, this is a woke show here, you know that, right? So we're taking care of the planet. Mike Richards, I'm ready for the big announcement. I'm going to lean back, stare into your beautiful eyes. Give me the details.
So, after a very long and arduous journey, I will now be, and Raw Mike Richards will be on Rogers, on City TV, and it's going to be in Calgary, because if I'm going to trust people, then I'm trusting my Calgarians. And so I will start in the new year. It will be Saturdays. It will be from 9 to 10 in the morning, simply because with a sports show like this and the commentary that I'll have, it's mountain time. So before pucks drop, before there's kickoffs, remember, there's a 2-hour difference. So I had to start at that time. I'm thrilled, and I would like to thank those at Rogers, who I've always had a great relationship with. It's when I dominated out at the Fan 960, and we had the biggest numbers in Canada. So if I'm going to start somewhere where there's going to be a level of trust, we talked about accountability and professionalism. There's a gentleman by the name of Kerry Elliott, who's the boss out at Rogers in Calgary for their group, and he has been a unicorn. I don't recall those moments in the last 10 years where I've met someone who's not only smart, but he has great enthusiasm. And so,
besides me, you mean?
Yes, aside from you,
Right.
And so I am thrilled to announce in 2025 that Raw Mike Richards Television, Rogers, City TV, and Calgary. No one does it like the Calgarians. So if I'm going to restart, if I'm going to reboot what I want to do, then it will be once again a 1-hour show, sports based. Mm-hmm. But the biggest difference probably in this is that not all guests, like main guests, and they will be of substance, are going to they're not going to have to be a sports personality, a character, a coach, a general manager. They can be from music, they can be from film, they can be from politics.
Like Rick Emmett might come on the program.
Rick Emmett could come on. I can't give away everyone who's coming on, but I can say some major bands, like world famous bands. There are
Triumph is a world famous band.
They're a famous, yes.
Make sure you know that.
But one that's currently playing.
Okay. The Arkells will show up. Okay.
I like the Arkells. The Arkells are welcome anytime they want.
Yeah. Are they world famous though? Or
no,
is that still Canada's phenomenon?
There are certain bands. Even when there was a time when you'd go down and talk about the Tragically Hip.
Yeah.
There were certain cities that understood.
Right.
There were certain pockets that knew what the hip were.
Yeah.
And then there's others like, bro,
right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, like they I mean, I noticed this, that like Lowest of the Low is a Canadian band, really famous in the GTA, to be quite honest. They really nurtured this market. But they can go play Buffalo multiple times a year, and everybody's excited in Buffalo. And why are they excited in Buffalo? Because in Buffalo, they would tune in 102.1, and they would hear Lowest of the Low, and they would hear the Tragically Hip. So like Buffalo's like sort of like, they always talk about, lately there's a lot of rhetoric about Canada being the 51st state. It makes me nauseous, man. You know, Buffalo should just become like the 11th province or something.
I
like
love
that.
Buffalo. I love going down there. I like the people. I like the city. I always have a great time. I know it takes a kick in the nuts. It shouldn't.
Did you watch that Bills game? Yeah, that was crazy, right?
That was more pain. Yeah, it was very crazy. Won all the props.
Well, okay.
Look who you're talking to. And I should also mention that within that hour, so what we're saying to people.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to your announcement. Don't get me wrong. Little detour. Go ahead.
That this is an opportunity that's not coming back again, and I don't know if anyone is going to get this shot. So I have to be very careful. I'm shooting it in Toronto because that's the way it's working right now. A company called Eggplant Film and Sound on Queen Street, longtime friends. Paul Moyer, Bruce, and Dave. They're just the greatest guys. Again, I've aligned myself with a team that is not unlike you. Right,
but you trust these guys.
Yes, like I trust you.
You have a history of these guys.
Yes,
they're not snake oil sales.
No, one of them went to high school with me. My dad taught him.
Good.
Paul Moyer. Okay. But then through Paul Moyer, I met a guy named Wayne Craig. Okay. Wayne Craig has been a director of huge commercials. You'd see them during Super Bowl. Spent most of his time in a lot of time in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So he is like a partner.
Yeah.
You have a guy named Matt Gillespie from Joe Media in Calgary.
Okay.
So he can handle all what we call traffic. So a lot of the administrative, a lot of the TV paperwork and stuff that I don't understand. Matt
Right.
Gillespie. Chris Duncan, who used to run City TV in Calgary and Edmonton, has always been in the TV business, mostly with CTV. He is sort of the consultant when it comes to overseer of all things television.
Right.
And then the coolest thing is just lately, within the last 2 weeks, because of how tricky the gaming is, I know people get mad about commercials when they see, Bet365 and
sports
FanDuel,
betting.
sports betting.
Right.
So a guy by the name of Phil Gray,
Okay.
who used to be on my show all the time because he was the lines maker for Sports Interaction, where Dave Bastel now works, because that's what Dave does, right?
Right.
You'll see him talking about showing up on Amazon and him making his picks. So that's what Dave does now. So before
Right.
people ask, what about Dave? That's what Dave's doing.
Right.
But Phil Gray, who is sort of a rock and roll guy too, was in a touring band, played bass, so he fits it. He's come on to be literally the director of gaming properties when it comes to Raw Mike Richards, and he has just started. And if you go right now to his LinkedIn Live, he has just announced what I'm announcing. So that just hit this morning at 9 a.m., and it all is going out. If you want to advertise, this is how you find it.
Touch of Grey, Grateful Dead.
I hate the Grateful Dead. I wish they were like their name. I just cannot,
Well, some of them are dead.
call Ridley and give them all the team measures they want.
Well,
Because
Jerry Garcia is
Yeah.
probably lying in state at Ridley right now. Okay, I have questions, as you can imagine. Okay, because I live and breathe this world. I'm very, very interested in some of the details here. So you refer to it as Rogers TV in Calgary.
Correct.
So that's not the same. Is that the same, or is it different than City TV in Calgary?
No, it's the same. Just
Okay.
Yes.
So
City TV.
So
yeah.
So I got to speak because this is Toronto Mike. So everybody here speaks. Most people here speak Toronto. So City TV. Shout out to Gord Martineau.
Gord Martin is a god to
Is
me.
he going to be a guest on
He's awesome.
your new show, Rod
I'd
Mike
love
Richards?
to have. He's fantastic.
I was talking to him the other day. So Gord Martineau, for example, Ann Moroskowski. I love the city policy. I just talked to Lauren Honickman and Peter Gross yesterday. That's how in teen I am. But there is an equivalent to our City TV in Calgary, Alberta.
Correct.
Okay. And you will have a television show that's going to air on that station, which is the Calgary equivalent to City TV. And it's going to be 1 hour a week. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. So Saturdays from 9 till 10 a.m.
And it's going to shoot here. So you have a studio here. It sounds like you're in Eggplant.
Eggplant, film, and sound.
So you're going to, and is it, I'm going to ask them dumb questions. Is it live?
No. So I will accumulate what I want to do that week, and it has to be shipped by Thursday.
Okay.
So then it plays Saturday. So I only have about 48 hours where should something happen, and I'll give you an example,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about Calgary.
Yeah.
The terrible Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey story. If that happens, I have no chance, and except what is going to come that's not down to the detail, I'm going to have to support the television show
Right.
with digital. So there has to be an availability. Maybe it's not a full podcast at this moment, not that it can't be,
Right.
but for 1 day a week, that leaves a lot of stuff that's going on, including making picks. So those that have seen my show over the years will also find that Jimmy the Bag, the legend, Jimmy the Bag.
Speaking of bags.
Yeah, he's going to be on the show, and he's just my favorite, right? He's
Jimmy the Bag.
just the best. So
Okay.
he will join me. So we may back that up on a digital perspective at other times during the week.
That Josh Allen performance yesterday I read was like the greatest fantasy sports day for a quarterback in the history of the sport.
Great.
NFL anyway.
Great for props.
I know. It's like, what an unbelievable effort for Josh Allen. They did not win the game, of course, which is some old school guys like me say that's the bottom line. Okay, so I have some obvious digital streaming things. So if you don't live in Calgary, let's say you live in Toronto, okay, and you want to watch Raw Mike Richards, how would you consume this content if you don't have the Rogers City TV station from Calgary on your device?
So there'll be a bunch of ways, aside from those watching in Alberta, that are going to see it from 9 to 10. If you have time shift, so a lot of people who have television can watch Winnipeg or Vancouver, Montreal. So you will be able to simply just go to your television and watch it when it shows up via your Bell or
Sure.
Rogers cable. That's one.
Right.
Two, it will exist on the Rogers digital platform. So if you didn't see it, you're going to be able to go to Rogers City in Calgary. Just go right to the website and boom, there it is.
So you'll be able, on demand, you can watch older episodes of your program via, I don't know, Rogers.com or wherever you go to watch on demand shows.
This is what I was talking about, trying to get on a major player, a major broadcast partner, because when you do that, the eyeballs that I can get from a platform like that, aside from being probably just independent, trying to do the raw Mike Richards thing, and that was very difficult. This, I have some pretty lofty goals for it, as you can imagine, that I always do.
So, okay, so will there be, this is, since you're on a podcast right now, and I always think podcast first, like I want to just like throw this in my podcast app of choice, which happens to be Podcast Addict. I want to go for a bike ride, and I want to hear an hour of Mike Richards talking about Juan Soto and Josh Allen and all this stuff, okay? And more, because, of course, your special guest will be Drake for the first episode.
I don't think that's ever going to happen, to be honest. And I didn't really know who it was back then, and I don't really know who he is now.
That's blissful ignorance.
But I'm just saying, it's not my thing.
Oh, I think it's Chapel Roan will be your first guest. Okay, so Mike Richards, will there be a podcast component out of the gate, or is that something that might be added later? What's the deal there?
So if you want the audio portion or it delivered in a way that, you know, you could put it, your headphones on and go for a run or go for a bike ride, that will be available from the start. That will go right from the very beginning.
Okay, good. There's actually I've been linked on the live stream, live.torontomike.com. I've been linked to a PDF. Okay, so I'm now looking at the logo, the Raw Mike Richards Show, and you're referred to as Canada's #1 sports talk personality, and I think you can use that.
That's nice.
Because I feel Bob McCallum was trying to own that, but he quit his show last week, so it's up for grabs. He's no longer a sports media personality. It's all up for grabs. It's yours, okay? And I'm now looking at the very handsome Mike Richards, and it says, media icon Mike Richards is back. This is quite the press release. I see a Rogers logo, so no qualms about getting in bed with the evil empire because they can dance.
Well, put it this way. Everyone in my business is going to have a feeling about how they were treated by a major corporation. Right. And most of it's going to be terrible stories, sad stories. Everyone's relationship with those companies is different. Mine with Rogers has always been good. The other guys, not as good. So, to me, for instance, the vice president of Rogers is Greg Sansoni. I've known him since he was a kid with his baseball cap on backwards, being the producer for Bob McCown back in the early 90s.
Sure.
And so he has an understanding and a language that he speaks, I understand. And no, I don't mean Italian. But what I'm saying is he, at being at the top of that totem pole, or almost, is a very good sign for me. There is room for myself to do something positive. And, I'll go a step further. Because there's not a lot of local content anymore, especially when you go to different cities in Canada, this is a chance to prove that we can do something that will show up on a local station that can grow. Because the growth of this is important. I don't want to be just 1 hour a week.
Right.
The goal is to be live every day, 5 days a week. That's the goal.
It almost sounds like a proof of concept, okay? We'll go live for an hour a week. Rogers will see, oh my God, look at the great content Mike Richards can pump out with that well-produced, polished hour of content. We need content. We have digital, we have Sportsnet, we have a City TV in other markets like Toronto. We have a radio station called 590. Like, it sounds like this is a proof of concept to get Mike Richards content into the umbrella of Rogers. So I have some.
That's 100% accurate.
But I have some
because that is exactly how one would look at this.
Okay, so that is amazing. You've got your foot in the door at Rogers. Okay, it's in Calgary, and again, to remind the listenership who thinks that you just kind of always worked in the GTA, you were a big fucking deal in the Calgary market. I say were, but I feel like that scene in The Wire where he goes, he was a man. They were talking about Cuddy Wise. He goes, he was a man back in the day. And then Slim Charles says, he's a man now. Okay?
Yeah, all of a sudden, you know what?
You can
hug me. You can hug me as much as you want.
I'm going to squeeze the shit out of that bag. Literally. Okay, so I have some questions again. And I hope, with all due respect, I need answers. One is, so this show's on in Calgary.
Yeah.
But a lot of your fan base is in Toronto. But will this be Calgary talk? Like a lot of talk about the Calgary Flames and the what do they call the Stampeders?
Yeah, the Stampeders.
I had to think about that for a moment.
So yes, this needs to be local. So I'm going to have someone from the Fan 960 join me every week, so we can go over what is happening.
What's going on in Calgary
with the Flames, with those kinds of things.
They love the Flames there.
But here's the trick to all of it. Going back to an earlier question you asked about why has it collapsed? Why does sports radio sound the way it does?
Right, vanilla.
There is a fine balance in that format to understand how much you can talk about one thing and what is it surrounded by. So if you need the inside workings of a sport, you would have an insider. So you would have Darren Dreger because he talks to the coaches, the general managers, the owners, the players. And
Mitch Marner's dad.
Or Mitch Marner's dad. But you can have, but if that's the only thing you do in any market, it's just not transferable to other markets.
Right.
This show is going to have, but see, just like before, it always had Calgary content, even when I was the morning man at the Fan 960.
Right.
Except all the guests and all the other content, you could have been from San Diego. It still made sense to you. That's the trick. And quite honestly, to be blunt, when you're a broadcaster that needs to have a level of talent in the pool that I came from back in the, and listening to it in the 70s and the 80s, when you had what Scruff Connors would do, when you had Brother Jake, what he would do, when you had Jungle J. Nelson, when you had, you can go through all the names that existed. Tom Rivers. Right? These are people who put together what I like to call shows.
Right.
And when someone else would listen to it, you're like, well, I can't do that.
Well, the Unfriendly Giant, for example. You're talking. Okay, but so I think, in my opinion, and you didn't ask me, but it's my show, I'm going to tell you, it's got to be local. Like, I think the great mistake made by, I don't want to bring any PTSD up here. Like, I don't want you to have any reaction, but the Team 1050. The Team 1050 tried to be on Toronto airwaves as a national show. And we learned very quickly that us assholes in Toronto don't want to hear about the Winnipeg Jets.
Canada is a regional country.
Right.
U.S. is not. I can talk about the Bills-Rams game in any city today in the United States.
Right.
They all watched it, and they all get it.
Right.
If I talk about the great start by the Winnipeg Jets, and I go down to Joey's, they're going to be like, why are you talking about that?
Right.
Don't you know that Mitch Marner last night had a cheeseburger and someone saw him drop an onion?
Right. The Nylander brothers played together or something.
Enough.
Right.
But the balance is all in presentation.
Right.
So that takes experience and a little bit of knowledge into what people might find interesting about another market in Canada. It's a trick. It's a challenge. But you have to know what you're doing when you're driving that bus. And the problem is when you put on, some know-it-all who knows everything about, the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Blue Jays, to get them to expound upon it. Like, why don't you, in talking about Vladdy, whether he'd stay or go based on the numbers that he's had in the last 3 seasons, because they saw what Juan Soto got. So if you're wondering, okay, well, why doesn't he just put his hat into the ring because he's got numbers that aren't far off? It's like, okay, that's fine. Have you ever thought about talking to him? I mean, you can talk to these guys. Right. I mean, I don't think necessarily usted necesito hablando español. You maybe don't have to do that. I can. But why not have some of the Raptors on? Why can't you do that? Why can't you talk? Not just, here's your insider, here's Josh Lewenberg, who I like, but where are the guys?
Yeah, but don't you think with media training in 2024, they never say anything of substance or interest? Like, it's not like the old days where Alexander McGillney would talk about his hemorrhoids. You know what I mean?
Well, they're
5 inches.
Yeah, but there are ways
okay.
to, in fact, one of my last interviews that I recall with John Tavares. So John Tavares comes in, and basically you're going to get, because they all became quite good at this. And you asked about the training, media training.
Yeah.
I think the professor or the teacher, the prof, must have been Mike Babcock. Because when you first asked a question to any of those Leafs, they all started to sound like their coach. Yeah. I'd say, so you've got Columbus tonight. What do you think the biggest challenge is going to be, like in terms of your offense? Well, I think you got to get out there and you got to play as a group, and if you get it together, they got good players and we got good players, and I think if you go about it the right way, I think you get a goal, and I think you got to give her. I think that's what you do. And I'm like, wait a minute,
that's pretty accurate.
I'm like, what? John, are you gonna be okay? And then you have to have a way, and I have my own style of doing it.
Yeah,
breaking down the person to get to the person. There's one of the greatest interviews I had on TSN.
Yeah,
was with Joe Montana. after the mics were like, it was pretty good, and then
Wait,
the mics
were you
went
gonna say
off.
after the mics went off, you had the
Yes.
best welcome to my world?
It's what happened because his son, who was a walk-on at Notre Dame, obviously where Joe went to school,
Rudy.
wasn't really given. Well, don't get me started on
They were
Rudy.
on the same. Okay.
Don't get me started on Rudy. The worst movie and the worst story. I had to work with the real
really?
guy. Oh, the real guy. I couldn't take it. You know, there's some guys that are just so irritated. That's why they finally said, "Fuck it, just put him on the field. You want to go? Get him out there." But his helmet's on backwards. Get him out there. Whatever. He's been bugging me for 7 years. Get him on the goddamn field. I no longer care. And so that's what, because I saw him speak in Hamilton, because I had to speak in Hamilton.
Yeah.
I had to leave.
Okay.
I couldn't take
He
it.
does seem like an annoying. I want to steal a line from an annoying little fuck. Like, he just seems like he'd be annoying, right? But, and again, the best scene in that Rudy movie never happened, right? It's where they turn in their jerseys or whatever.
There's a
to the
bunch of
coach.
stuff.
Like, all the best scenes in that damn movie never happened. But I digress. Okay, so you had a great convo. But again, because we only have the hour here, and I need to understand, when can we expect the first episode of this brand new show? Mike Richards.
I am hoping that we can get it on by Super Bowl. My initial goal was October, so I would get most of the NFL season. The problem being,
Yeah.
and like I said beforehand, when it comes to gaming and the gambling aspect,
Right.
what I didn't know was Alberta technically is not live. And by that, I mean legal.
Right.
So like 2-ish years ago, when everyone went live in Ontario, so Bet365, FanDuel, BetMGM, Sports Interaction, who's already here because they're Canadian.
Right.
Well, they were Canadian. They're not that way. The only thing that's legal, technically, to be have the ability to advertise is like their
Pro-Line
They're Pro-Line.
equivalent
Yeah. So that's
in
the
Alberta.
ALGC, so the Alberta Lottery Gaming Corporation. So they're the only ones technically. So we had someone on board, and then Phil joined late, right? Because this other guy was promising. One of the crazies that I've talked about.
Yeah.
So we had a guy who said he could help us out.
Not surprised by that.
And he turned out to be like Frankenstein's monster. I have no idea what happened to this person, but it got really weird. And then there was this promise of this big gaming company. I said, "Oh, it's great." But then I contacted Phil, and Phil Gray goes, "Okay, well, that can't happen." What do you mean? Well, there'd be a compliance issue. You can't how would they not know? How did this person get that company without bringing up the fact that, by the way,
You can't air these ads in Alberta.
you can't do that. But that never happened. So thank God for Phil that he came to the rescue and said, "Look, here's what's coming. They're going live in the new year. They hope by Super Bowl. And there's going to be new companies, including companies like StakeBet." And people are like, what's StakeBet? Bet99, CoolBet, all these other ones that they'll all be glomming onto Alberta like they did here, and they need a place to put their
So
advertisement.
wait, when does it become legal in Alberta?
It could be as late as the spring, which would
2025.
be... Yes.
But it's coming. Like, it's coming in
Oh,
2025.
no, it's done. No, it's done.
Okay.
It's done.
Right.
That's-
So there'll be that day. I remember the day when you can legally advertise, sports betting in Ontario. And you're right. There were a whole bunch of approved, accredited sports gambling sites that were buying lots of digital airtime. So
it went nuts.
you'd
In
be at
fact, it
home
was
for that.
overkill. You couldn't go 5 seconds.
So you're waiting for that before you go live, maybe.
Well, I may not. I may just go with the, with...
Super Bowl time, which is like early Feb, I guess. Early February.
I would like to think, because to do the show itself, which is sort of we see what the segments will be,
Right.
but it's going to be a very fast moving 1 hour. I mean, this hour is going to move. So I don't have a lot of time. So there won't be a lot of this. Well, we're aimlessly just talking, going, "Hey, look at that tape measure. Wonder what I'll measure today."
It's gonna be all killer, no filler. You got what was the name of the bag guy?
Jimmy the Bag.
Jimmy the Bag. Like, you got people. It's going to be fast. And again, you're producing. It's not live, so it's been packaged together by the Eggplant people here in Toronto, and then sent over to air on City TV in Calgary. Was it Saturday morning?
Saturday mornings.
Saturday morning. What time?
9 to 10.
So 9 local time. So Alberta time, 9 a.m. And it's going to be, again, it sounds like it's going to have, of course, the big stories, which are, national stories, but you're going to have a little more hyper focus on Stampeders and Flames action.
Well, because of when this is going, there's going to be obviously Flames talk.
Of course.
I'm going to talk to Flames, and then I'll actually talk to Flames. So instead of going, the problem with this constant nauseating criticism of players or whatever, just say it to their face then. Why don't you put them in there?
Right.
I mean, that's what I always did. if there was something going on, I assumed that I would talk to the coach or one of the players. Difficult to do, and people are like, well, they won't say anything. Yeah, they're guarded. I get that, but then you have to go down and gain their trust. That's something I learned from Paul Romanek, who knew all these guys when they were junior. So he would talk to them in junior. So the first guys off the ice,
Right.
Paul would talk to all of them, and they would talk to Paul. It's why guys like Jonathan Taves, who a lot of these junior guys out in Western Canada, when they would go to the World Juniors, they already knew me because I put them on the air all the time. So they would talk to me when they became professionals.
But now you need access, right? They control the access to these guys like nobody's business, and it's not like the old days.
So it's up to you
Yeah.
to form a relationship with the team, not just the PR guy, but I have to, I'll go up and there's Keith Pelly. So someone who's known me for years, who's now, I was very pleased to see that.
MLSE.
And if I said, Pels, here's what I need. Now, if I'm with Rogers right now, that's a good thing. For once, Mike, I might be on the right side of history.
Right, that's true.
It's like,
That's true.
hey, I got a free trip on a boat.
Can I ask
It's
some
the
annoying...
Titanic. That's what that is. That's what's happened to me.
That's funny. All right, so a few annoying things. Okay, so you package this up in Toronto. It's going to look pro. So I have some question about like who's paying for the eggplant production? Like,
Right, so that all comes from sponsorship, all the money that we're raising via the sponsors.
okay, then I have another dumb, insider question, which is, so this is different than Rogers tapping you on the shoulder and say, hey, you're a Calgary sports media superstar. Would you have a show on our network? And it's more like you guys, maybe it's your gentleman touch of gray here, who kind of tap the shoulder of Rogers and say, hey, can we buy an hour on
No, that's the only thing that exists for anybody currently that's not an employee of one of these big companies.
Okay, but you're buying the time.
Yes, correct.
And you're paying Eggplant to package up to the professional video production. It's
Well,
gonna
so-
look
so-
slick. I've seen
yeah.
this. I've seen it looks like you're I don't know, it's the National or something. Like you're at the desk there. Like it looks big leagues. So that's got to cost a pretty penny. So you got to pay Eggplant.
No. The people who've come on to support this know that it's important to get me, for the industry, to start to prove that we don't necessarily always need an American show to fill that void.
Right.
I love Pat McAfee. Don't get me wrong. I watch Pat McAfee probably every day. But when I saw that, I'm like,
He's not talking Flames.
he's not talking. Well, he probably does. But
Does he know there's a Calgary Flames?
I don't know if there's a lot of NHL talk. But I love the show. I love what they do.
Yeah.
Colin Cowherd.
Yeah.
Articulate. Interesting. Great takes. I mean, Dan Patrick's got his thing, but it's almost becoming a little folksy for me. It's not really where I would go. However, this is what we put on our airwaves. Why can we not, in this country, who are crazy about sports, we're still sports fanatics, we don't have any hosted shows by our own people who have their own takes? Well, guess what? Starting in 2025, now you do.
Mike Richards, again, we'll have to follow you. Where's a good place on social media to find out what day that first episode's gonna
Twitter,
air?
I still use Twitter, even though people very upset.
You know what, I fucking hate it now.
With the Twitter, people
I
are
hate
upset.
it now.
Yeah,
and I was the biggest. I will say, go to the archives. It's all there. No one used Twitter. No one enjoyed Twitter more than I did. And now when I go in there, my gut hurts. Like the cesspool, the Nazis, all of it. Fucking hate it. I'm on Blue Sky now.
Do you like it? Because I've not even been to the
Yeah,
thing.
no, it's like old,
So you-
it's
are
like,
you-
you know what it is? It's old Twitter without the Nazis.
So are you saying I should have
Oh my God.
a Blue Sky
Do I
account?
have any? I mean, if you worked with me, you'd have a Blue Sky account. And you can just think what I do is I write it for Blue Sky because that's what
Are
I
we going to
care
work
about.
together? Because we
I
can work
copy-
together. No,
I'm about to work
no.
together.
Are we going to work
But
together?
is there room? It sounds. Here's the thing. So my only concern. So first of all, again, to reiterate the obvious, there's no one's rooting harder for Mike Richards than I am. I told you. I alluded to the Jeff Lumby combos I've had. My only concern for you is keeping your overhead low because you have to pay yourself too. I'm worried you're going to forget to pay Mike Richards.
Yeah, but I'm selling a house in Calgary, so I don't care. You want to hear
ahead.
honesty? I'm
Well, I've got
selling
it,
a
10
complete
minutes. Let's
house,
go.
so I'm going to sell a house. But there is
But
money.
wait, you own property in Calgary and you're going to sell it, and that's going to finance this Mike Richards?
No. There is going to be no personal money in this. There doesn't
Okay,
have to
okay.
be because
So
we
good.
now just so we know,
Yeah.
it's some of the bigger sponsors we're looking for. But we currently do have sponsors in Calgary. I mean, we're going to try to sell out, obviously, but I'm not really worried about that either. I'm not worried about the
You're not worried
sponsorship.
about this, EK, because nowadays you'll have, like, I'm going to use Jeff Merrick as an example, right? You might relate to being fired by mainstream media, right? Like Jeff Merrick was a popular,
Yeah, very popular. Good guy. Yeah.
good guy,
Yeah.
popular show on the Rogers networks.
Yeah.
And he was living in Vegas and he got the tap on the shoulder and said, go home. Your services are no longer required. And then he licks his wounds for a bit. He lays low. He's a pretty chill guy. He takes some calls. And now he's got a podcast. Okay, that's basically the next venture. But his overhead on the podcast is pretty low, you know? And my worry for you is because it's going to be a big league TV show filmed here, and then it's going to be on time that you bought from Rogers in Calgary. My worry is you got to pay this guy needs a cut. And by the end of the day, you're like, oh shit, I made more money going on Toronto Mike because at least he gave me a speaker, he gave me lasagna, he gave me beer, he gave me measuring tape.
That's the difference of being on a major network with major, implications that we've got sponsors. I won't, and with the way that things are shot now, as opposed to in the day where you had all these moving cameras and you had a lot of expense,
right?
This is
the costs have come way down.
The least of my concerns would be studio cost.
Do you have a makeup artist?
Why? What are you saying?
They're not cheap. Those makeup artists.
First it was all the hugging. Now it's what are you going to do about your face?
Slap some lipstick on there before we do that big hug here after. Okay. I'm so excited about this announcement because you're back on TV, man. Like, I've never been on TV. You're going to be on TV in Calgary, and Calgary already loves Mike Richards. So you got brand recognition, and I saw the logo. I've seen the set. This is going to be like a major television production, and we get an hour of Mike Richards on City TV in Calgary. And like we talked about earlier, once you're in the family on the airwaves, some wise person at Rogers is going to be like, I like the cut of this guy's jib. We have other markets that need content, and they're going to be tapping you on the shoulder, and it's going to be the good news, not the
it is
bad news.
I'm fully expecting that. Also, look, the major concern for a lot of these people, including in this, was, but you're going to not do some of that other stuff, right? Like, you're not going to
Bob Cole?
No, you're not going to have like contests like gay or not gay and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know. You're not going to make.
That's a good question. Are you going to do something like gay or not gay?
No,
in 2025.
I would say, after years of trying to get a deal, to drop something that would probably offend 80.
Everyone's gay, right?
But the thing is, the show was that segment, that contest, which is what it was. It's not like gay people were accosting me on the street or saying that was terrible. What they were saying was, because it had nothing to do, it was the terminology of what was gay. That's what it was. So these gay guys, you'd be in a place and a guy, excuse me, what? Do you seriously think that's gay, what you said? Are you saying that that's your understanding of what gay is? Because honestly, you were so far off. And then, so they wanted to be on the show. But that was then, I don't want to get into where I'm going to spin my tires on something that I don't need to involve. Someone said, what are you talking about, the transgender issue or that boxer with the high? No, I honestly, I just got this gig. I really am probably not coming up with the cannons. Look at it, and Lumpy and I had this conversation. Look at it like how they constructed Seinfeld. They didn't do the masturbation show first. They didn't do, there's nothing wrong with that, gay show, quote unquote, like in the second season. It takes you a while to gain the confidence of people that you're not only, broadcasting on behalf of, but your audience. Like, what does your audience really want to hear? Do they want to hear you rant and rave about something that they're like, I don't know. Why is he so upset? Why can't he just do Peyton Manning? Why can't he just do, whatever gag or whatever take they want? Do they want to hear me talk about the Blue Jays and how most of those fans that I feel bad for, who pay way too much money for their seats, they pay way too much. The concession stands are a nightmare. And they're like, oh, we're going to call them neighborhoods. Well, you should call them pirates because that's what you are. It's awful. Paying $40 for a hamburger or whatever it is.
Careful, Rogers owns that team.
Yeah, well, you know what? Then there better be a discount because I'm not doing that. And if you really think that they're, in this day and age, especially with the Canadian dollar, and I know they get paid in American dollars, do you know how much it costs for an American to come here? Or anybody else that wants like a $1 trillion deal? I got news for you, Blue Jay fans. They're not coming.
Like
Never.
Juan Soto, for example.
Not coming. Shohei Ohtani, like, do you think we're going to get him? I'm like, no.
I heard from a good source he was on a flight here.
Yeah. Okay, probably because he likes Wonderland.
Mike Richards, great announcement. I look forward to learning what day I can see this product from you. But I think having your voice, your take on Canada's airwaves on any platform, we're all better off for that. Like, I root for you. I can't wait to follow your journey here. And,
well, it's a great show. A lot of people are saying, a lot of people, it could be the best show, the greatest show that's ever happened, and we're going to bring it back. We're going to bring it all back. And it's all because of you. You did a great job. Not the best job, but you did a pretty good job.
Can you tease one of those major recording artists that's going to drop by the Raw Mike Richards
This
show?
person is currently working with Van Halen.
Oh my goodness! I can't believe it. I don't even have a guess. I don't know who's working. Is there still a Van Halen? I feel like Eddie died, and I feel like is there still a Van Halen?
You'll have to watch the show and find out.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,595th show. Go to TorontoMike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. I'm on Blue Sky at Toronto Mike. Much love to all who made this possible. That is Great Lakes Brewery. How was the Canuck Pale Ale, Mike Richards?
All their beer's good. It is. I'm not just saying that. All their beer's fantastic.
They're going to love to hear that. And Palma Pasta, again, we know you love Palma Pasta. Anthony's listening. A message for Anthony?
Am I getting free stuff when I go there next time? Because I really enjoy. No, the thing, we talk about lasagnas on the show.
Yeah.
You got to go to the stores and see what else is available. He has some of the nicest pastas. The fettuccine roll. Get any of the sausage, the sopressata, calabrese chianti. I mean, it's all beautiful.
Beautiful. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Moneris, enjoy the speaker. Enjoy season 7 of
cool.
Yes, We Are Open. It's a great speaker. We're going to be listening to you on the Rogers City TV in Calgary coming hopefully February maybe.
Yes.
Sounds like. Okay, February 2025, right? Not 2026.
2025.
Okay. And shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. I literally have another recording in a half an hour, so if you're on the live stream, just stick around. I've got a great Indigenous musician coming by. We might get his commentary on the new Mike Richards news. Stay tuned for that. See you all then.